Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hello there, my amazing podcast listeners. Today is a bit of a bonus episode and a bit of a special episode because currently, as I'm recording this, it is Sunday, the 15th of October, 2023, and it's a pretty special day for myself and for many other women out there because it is the day of International Rural Women's Day. Now, this was a day proclaimed by the UN General Assembly back in 2007 to recognise the critical role and contribution of rural women, including Indigenous women, in enhancing agricultural and rural development, improving food security, and eradicating rural poverty. Now, as you more than likely know, listening to this podcast, I am actually a rural woman. I live in the Riverina of New South Wales. I'm married to Mr. Farmer, who is a fifth generation farmer, and I am a farmer's daughter as well as a farmer's wife. As well as many other things, of course. So, rural is something that is really, really close to my heart. A lot of the marketing and that I do is very rural focused, although I do have clients from all around Australia. I really get quite a lot of joy out of helping rural and regional small business owners to, recognize the power of marketing in their own businesses. So that's why I like to travel around and do workshops. And it's the reason why I have written my brand new book called Small Town Big Impact, which will be out very, very shortly. But today, it's really actually not about me. Today, I have some amazing interviews for you. I have got, I think there's 8 rural women together from all around the country to tell you a little bit about themselves and tell you a little bit about what it's like to live where they live. I'm really excited to bring this episode to you. I hope that you will find a nice quiet space, or maybe you're out walking, you're in the car, to have a listen to these amazing rural women. Some of these women I know really quite well, and they are very dear to my heart as fellow rural women. Some of them I actually haven't met. They've put their hand up and gone, you know what? I want to be involved in this podcast and I want to tell my story about rural living and working in rural and regional Australia. I came across this really cool platform called Rumble. So, how Rumble, Rumble. So, app Rumble Studio. And I've used that as my platform to interview these amazing women. So, just a bit of a heads up, these are the questions that they are actually answering because you won't hear me ask the question as the rural women answer them. They actually did a recording. So they've heard the questions or read the questions and then just answered. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on these are the questions I actually asked them to bring out their stories, so that we could all have this amazing time with them on International Rural Women's Day. So the first question was, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you live, why you live in the country, and if you're a business owner in the country, tell us a little bit about that business too. My second question was, how has living in a rural and regional area shaped your identity? My third question was, what are some of the biggest challenges you face as a rural woman and how have you overcome them? My next question was, besides your rural business, can you give a shout out to another rural woman in your community who has been an inspiration to you? Because as you know, or may not know if you've listened to me or follow me, one of my favorite sayings and one of my business values is a rising tide lifts all boats. So I'm always like, okay, who can you shout out to give someone else a bit of a platform as well? And my final question to all the amazing amazing women who have answered today is what are your hopes and dreams for the future as a rural woman in your community? And what does International Rural Women's Day do for rural women? So I'm not going to talk any longer. Let's get into it. Happy Rural International Day to all of you. And I really hope you enjoy these interviews that I've put together today.
Hello there, Wilma, and I'm located in Eagle Point in East Gippsland in regional Victoria. Just to give you your bearings about where that is located, it's about 3.5 hours east of Melbourne, and we live in a beautiful part of Australia. Eagle Point is a very small place. We don't have any shops. We've got a couple of caravan parks, but we've got beautiful nature, and we're located on the Gippsland Lakes near Bairnsdale and Paynesville. And essentially in our region, you can be on the lakes in the morning, or you can be surfing on the 90 Mile Beach. And then in the afternoon, you can be up in the ski slopes, up in the Great Alpine Road area of Dinner Plain and Mount Hotham. So it's really fabulous. We moved here about 5.5 years ago. My partner Rob and I are partners in life and business. And initially when we were looking for somewhere to live, we were living in Melbourne and we wanted to live in the country, but we really weren't sure what would be suitable for us. And we also thought we needed to be close to an airport. Now, the irony is that once we decided that we could cast our net wider and distance wasn't going to be so much of an issue, that really opened up a whole range of opportunities for us, but it also enabled us to pivot our business online before it was trendy, before COVID. So what we do is we help small businesses, not-for-profits and social enterprises plan for the future, and we help them package their knowledge and expertise so that they can make a big impact on the world. And one of the things that surprised us about living in the country was that we thought it might be hard to make friends, but we've been absolutely thrilled about the beautiful friendships we've created and nurtured and how welcoming and inclusive everybody is. And that's not just in our small part of our community, but overall through the whole of the Gippsland region, which of course is a big part of Victoria. And we also love the resilience of our communities, and we've been through quite a lot, including drought and COVID, bushfires, and climate issues. But the connectedness and resilience and adaptation of the way that we do things is really, really important. It's a joyful place to live. It's great to run our business remotely, and it's great to be able to be part of a community where we're helping make a positive difference and change. And I think one thing, if you're listening to this and sort of thinking, you might like to relocate somewhere, but you're not sure where, we can highly recommend taking trips and sort of immersing yourself in the community, and going to some festivals and events is a great way to sort of be part of the community and get to know some people. We found as well that people have been incredibly welcoming, and we're really thrilled to be in this part of this beautiful country of ours in Australia. So when I think about how living in regional Australia has shaped my identity, I think that if I look back in my life, I've spent a lot of time being really busy in different parts of my career and life and family. We don't have children, but I think I have used my career that shaped a lot of my identity. And what's different now is that I can be me and I can run a business, but I can also be myself. And I have noticed quite a few changes in myself as I've grown in the last 5.5 years living in regional Victoria. I think my interests are still there in the world and travel and things like that, but I find a lot more enjoyment in more simpler things, being involved in volunteering, connecting with people and sharing resources, enjoying traveling and being part of nature. I would like more green time, less screen time, and that's certainly a big goal. I think what's also changed for me is a sense of how important it is to be there for each other as neighbours, as community members, especially in times of crisis and need. And whether there's changes in the economic environment or whether there's changes in the natural environment, I think that connectedness we have with our neighbours and community is really what keeps us going and keeps us strong, and considering different ways to collaborate to solve really complex problems. And that doesn't have to always be large amounts of money and resources. Sometimes it could be just utilising those resources better or tapping into the talents and skills that people have, particularly in a regional area. Some of the biggest challenges that I faced being a rural woman would probably be about balancing time living where we do, but also spending time with family. I notice as time goes on, my dad is ageing, although he's still very active, prioritising spending time with friends who live elsewhere, and jumping in the car and travelling 3, 4, 5 hours to go somewhere is sort of normal now. But I think one of the challenges is balancing doing that in a mindful way, not just travelling and spending a whole bunch of time with people and rushing around like a crazy person and not enjoying that quality time with people. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges. Obviously, we can keep in touch via phone calls and emails or messaging, different platforms and things like that. But I think being one-on-one together is really where you have those meaningful moments. And I think prioritising that as well as running our business is something that is important. Obviously, we get to choose how and when we spend our time in different locations, but I think sometimes I do feel a bit of a tyranny of distance with people who we love who are elsewhere. So I'd like to give a shout out to a very inspirational rural woman, Sally Jones, who's the co-founder of Gippsland Jersey. And she and her co-founder have done amazing work in not only providing options for milk and dairy farmers to get their product to market, but also to put a focus on the importance of mental health for farmers and their families. And I'm always thrilled to see the different campaigns that they run, particularly the talks that Sally gives. She's always got really interesting perspectives, and also her role in rural leadership through various programs. So I think she's someone who I really like to give a shout out to, and she's really put on the map not only women in agricultural businesses, but women who want to stand for something and also ensure that people make effective change. Not just lip service. So big shout out to you, Sally. So my hopes and dreams for the future of rural women in my community is that they feel connected, included and safe, and that they can access services and information and knowledge that empowers them, and that they can access technology that enables them to be connected and then thrive in business and life, and access services, particularly health services, that are often really hard to access in regional and rural areas because there's not the services at all, or they're in high demand and it's hard to get a booking, particularly mental health services. And I really hope that we can continue to identify ways that women can lead meaningful lives and according to their hopes and dreams and aspirations, not just being pigeonholed into what other people think or trying to juggle all the things. I don't have children myself, but I know a lot of people in our community struggle to get childcare. They also find it really difficult to spend time doing the things that they want to do and need to do in order to meet their goals and aspirations. So I know that that's a challenge for many. And I think this sort of focus on International Rural Women's Day keeps us on the map and noticing that women in rural areas have all sorts of talents and skills and are resilient and really make a great contribution, not just to our own families and our own community, but the overall success and thriving of our country through everything that we do.
About, and I live in the beautiful Gippsland Lakes of East Gippsland, I've lived here for over 10 years and I run my own company called Wellness Works, and it's supporting, educating, aiding and empowering organisations, particularly in rural regional locations, to perform optimally through the well-being of not only their staff but of the organisation at large. I'm on a mission to implement wellness support officers in particularly non-for-profit organisations across rural regional Australia, because we are under-resourced here when it comes to healthcare industry. We have a high incidence of preventable diseases and suicide. So I believe that workplaces in rural regional locations are the new frontier of the healthcare industry, and by providing that wellbeing support, we can provide clientele, staff, community with early intervention and accessing and actioning the right healthcare resources they need in order to prevent disease, in order to prevent suicide, in order to support physical and mental health and keep people out of hospital. So I love living in the country. I moved down here because my family had all moved down here, and after travelling abroad for so many years, I wanted to be close and residing with family. I love the quiet lifestyle by here, by the beautiful Gippsland Lakes, a great cohort of friends and people and community. And I just like the slower pace. I love my morning walks by the lake and paddle boarding out on the water and seeing the dolphins and being amongst nature. It's beautiful. In rural regional location in East Gippsland, Victoria, Australia, has shaped my identity in the fact that how I operate in business is essentially different to how I'd be operating in a metropolitan location. So I've got to take into consideration the high incidence of disease and lack of healthcare resources, and that has shaped how I do business. The other area that it's shaped me is just having the opportunity to be out and amongst and one with nature. So morning walks by the Gippsland Lakes, swimming in the lakes, paddleboarding in the lakes, seeing the dolphins, seeing the koalas, seeing the kangaroos, and being in nature manages and mitigates my stress. There's never any traffic jams. There's always something to do, and it's just absolutely beautiful down here. So I believe I'm a lot more relaxed and calm person living in rural regional Australia. That I've faced as a rural woman and how I've overcome them is when I first moved down here, I didn't really have the connections, particularly the business connections. I felt very alone in business, and that could be and was initially quite a challenge and a struggle. So how I overcame this is essentially I put together with a group of educated, smart and savvy business women that I slowly met was to start a organisation called Empower, which is a women in business networking group. And we started this group several years ago, and we do networking. We get together and have meetings. We share resources and knowledge. We network and we learn from each other, and therefore feel supported and never feel alone in business. And that's really helped to support my own business and grow my own business in this location. Other challenges that we've overcome is accessing certain resources, or also accessing clientele further afield. And I think since the pandemic, we've really moved more online, which has enabled my business to grow and enabled me to reach clients further afield, to do study online, to access those sort of resources that help to educate me and support me in business. Shout out would be to Jodie Wilmer of Happy Change Makers, who has been a phenomenal business mentor and friend to me. She has an inspirational and successful business around supporting organisations with their strategic plans. She supported me with the growth of my business with her resources and her mentoring, and I am forever grateful. And through that, we've become good and close friends, and I appreciate her as a business owner, as a mentor, as a rural businesswoman, and as a friend. The future of rural women in our community of East Gippsland is to continue to encourage, inspire, and champion each other in business, continue to collaborate and network and support each other's professional as well as personal development and growth. And what does a day look like for International Rural Women's Day for rural women? I think it's a real opportunity for women to come together, to share stories, to hear each other's stories, to know that even if we're in a rural location, we're not alone. We are a part of a community, and we can support each other in our growth and development in business as well as in our personal lives.
My name is Tori Kopke. I am located near Cunderdin in Western Australia. I live in the country because I was backpacking and fell in love with a farmer. That was about 13 years ago now. We live on our family farm in the wheat belt of WA. So we are a cropping farm. We have wheat, barley, canola, and at the moment we are doing export hay. So we're in the thick of hay season. I run my own business alongside the farm, working as a business coach and a strategist, and I work with other rural and regional women in business to help support and grow their businesses and launch their signature offers and get visible and seen by the world. And it's really fun. I absolutely love what I get to do. The area has really allowed me to find a sense of home. Being international, being from Texas, having been here 13 years, I don't think I would have the same sense of belonging if I lived in the city. I think in the city you can get kind of caught up in the hustle and bustle, and you don't have necessarily the same comforts that we have. You know, when I go to town, I may not know everyone's name on the main street, but fair chance I know their face. I mean, we've only been here 12, 13 years. I'm definitely not a local by any means, but I think that sense of belonging has definitely shaped my identity, and that if I didn't have that sense of belonging, I likely would have returned to Texas, or I would have found it much harder to stay in Australia. And so I think that shape of that sense of belonging has definitely shaped my identity, my future, my life. It has shaped a lot of things. And I feel really fortunate that I have such a sense of belonging in regional communities, because it is just, the people are incredible. And I think it is the people that I really connect with. And they're one of the main reasons that I love so much living in Australia. I would say without a doubt, one of my biggest challenges is logistics. And I think a lot of rural women have logistical challenges. For me in particular, it's definitely the fact that we don't have any family around. And so raising kids, running the farm, running the business, that is a pretty big challenge. You know, limited resources in terms of who's gonna have the kids. But then there's kind of going a step further as well in logistical challenges. Like right now, my youngest son needs to go to the doctor, and we don't have a doctor in town for the next 2 weeks, which is totally fine. But then when the doctor does reopen, she's only there 2.5 days a week, which it just becomes this huge logistical challenge, which is really unfortunate, because I think we should all have access to quality healthcare. And it's just one of those challenges that we have living in the country or living in small towns. Is the reality is we probably do have to travel. And so it probably means I should load up the car and head to Perth and go see my GP in downtown Subiaco and do that, because that gives us that access. I am very fortunate that, you know, we are a day trip to Perth. It is 2 and a bit hours one way. And so I'm very fortunate by that. So I think the logistics that we have to solve on a daily basis are really unique to rural women. And they're challenges that, you don't necessarily see women in the city deal with. And I have to say that rural women are so unique in their ability to solve their challenges. But for me, it's definitely logistics, whether it be juggling the kids, figuring out how I'm going to get a new carton of milk, or just getting to the doctor. So I feel like I can't mention the struggles and juggles of finding a doctor without mentioning the telehealth access that we do have in another incredible rural woman in business, and that is Rebecca Bradshaw from Rural Child Health. I have been able to access her from my computer, during nap times, and having that sort of support that is also a woman in business is really incredible and really powerful. And she's definitely an inspiration. I think she was 2022 Queensland Rural Woman of the Year. She is so lovely and so incredible. And so she's just, I guess, one woman I could shout out that is a rural woman in business. There are so many incredible businesses, and it just amazes me when I see so many new businesses popping up, and then all of the ones that are already here just growing and growing every day. I have a lot of hopes and dreams for rural women. I think one of the biggest one is around probably self-acceptance and self-celebration, because I think too many times rural women, they put themselves in a bit of a box, and they don't necessarily allow themselves to really flourish. And so that's probably one of my biggest hopes, is that women allow themselves to flourish. They take up space, they command space. And I think that the more we can be loud and proud as rural women, whether that be in our own community or online or in our own business, I think that only benefits other women. I think a day like International Rural Women's Day, it needs to be celebrated. It needs to be recognized, because so much of the work that rural women do is often invisible. It's not necessarily, out driving the tractor. It's not taking the grain to the bin. It's not that the pretty stuff that lands in the magazines. We are doing invisible work. We are holding families together, keeping staff happy and fed. We're doing so much invisible work. And so I think having a day like International Rural Women's Day really allows us to be celebrated for all of these invisible roles that we do, in addition to things like running our own business. So I think a day like International Rural Women's Day it's a non-negotiable, and I think it needs to be paused. I think everyone needs to pause and celebrate it, because it is such a phenomenal day, celebrating so many incredible women who don't necessarily get that recognition in their day-to-day life.
Hello, Jackie Hicken. I live in a place called Merber North in South Gippsland, which I returned to South Gippsland in 2008. So that was like 15 years ago, after growing up on a dairy farm, doing the, oh my God, I'm not going to live in the country. There's nothing for us kids to do, and moving to the city to have a career as a television engineer. And then I moved back to Merber North in South Gippsland in 2008, where I started Jackie Can, which originally was a cafe and has since become a cooking school, where I teach skills-based cooking classes. We have long lunches. I grow all the produce that we use in the cooking school myself in my backyard. And I have decided not to leave the regions ever. Apart from running the cooking school, I also work as a journalist remotely, which gives me this really strange, broad understanding of what goes on in the regions, as I live in South Gippsland and I write about the area around Echuca and a lot of the communities around Echuca. So I work remotely as a journalist, and then on the weekends I run the cooking school. I'm not sure if you need to know anything else about me. I'm happy to share whatever you need to know. Yeah. The journalism thing means that I finally worked out what I'm supposed to do with my life at the age of 50, and I'm pretty much enjoying it and having a good time. Thanks. Living rurally or regionally, whichever way you want to call it, in a small country town is literally what I'm about all the time. And living where I live and working during the weeks in a different region but still rurally means that I can use what I know about where I live and apply it to other regional communities without much of a stretch of an imagination, which it just gives me this unique and pretty special understanding of how people live or what they face and what they look forward to doing in small regional communities. Personally, I can't really think of personal over challenges that I faced, but the biggest one that I faced was a business challenge. So my business is not in my house, but it's in a separate building next to my house. Just around about 200 meters from the main street of the town that I live in. So it's zoned residential. I didn't know when I bought the house and moved here that you are not allowed to have a business in your property that people regularly visit with regular opening hours in a residential property. It's got to do with state legislation on planning laws and things like that. So the biggest challenge that I faced was the fact that I wanted to operate a business in a building that was not my house. The building was already there, has been for a long time, in a residential zoned property or on a residential zoned property. That was probably my biggest challenge. It took around about 10 years to overcome it. A lot of paperwork, a lot of costs to finally, which I wouldn't recommend to people to go through. It is very stressful and there's no guarantee that you'll be able to come out at the other end with a successful outcome. But I overcame the fact that we were told we couldn't have a planning permit, we couldn't have a building permit, we couldn't have a change of use permit, and as a result, we wouldn't be able to open to the public or have things like a liquor license in the business. I overcame them just through time, costs, income, and doing one piece of advice that I got from a person within the local council when I first moved here, which was, the advice was, before you ask council for anything, make sure people know who you are and make sure that they actually think you're valued. You're a part of the value of you value to community, which I mean is like you participate, you do stuff. So from the beginning that I started the business, or I moved here to start the business, I actually participated in the community and was involved in many things for many, many years. And I still am involved in a few things, not as much as I used to be, but I'm still involved in a few things in the community. So that's how I probably wiggled my way a little bit into being involved and overcoming the challenges of not being allowed to officially operate a business in a residential property, which in Worry we can actually do now. So being on the wrong side of 50 now, or just 50, I have worked with many, many rural women over a really, really long time. And something that sticks in my brain is the original women that started Women on Farms in Warragul. At the time, I was a observer as the daughter of one of the original organisers. So I'd say one of the people that I would give a shout out the most to, who has been inspiration to me, has been my mother and other members of the family, plus the women who've worked in agriculture and farming before me, which there's many, many, many of them, and there still is many, many, many today. My hopes and dreams for the future of rural women, I think it's more around people who aren't rural women understanding what rural women do, or that we're actually not any different to normal women who don't live in the regions, and that we have hopes, dreams, and up and live the same as pretty much everybody else. I think International Rural Women's lets people have an understanding of what rural women do who live in the regions and the role they play in their communities and in the environment, looking after everybody.
Hi, I'm Meredith, and I am located in the Whitsunday region of Queensland, which I think is one of the most beautiful areas that I've ever visited, and I'm so happy to call it home. I live here with my husband and our 3 daughters, and we are expecting baby number 4 in the new year, so that's very exciting. I'm also a systems strategist and an online business manager, and that means that I get to jump into people's business and help them tackle their overwhelm when it comes to utilizing their software, recommending different tech stacks. It's just a really exciting part of business. I know so many people struggle with it, but I really nerd out on all of that type of thing. So I grew up on a very remote cattle station in the Gulf of Carpentaria of Queensland. And when I say it was remote, so we lived on the outstation. It was just my parents, my sister and I. And if we had a good wet season, we would be cut off by road for a good 5 to 6 months. So that growing up in that way with mum homeschooling us and not often seeing people from the outside world, it was a very unique way to grow up. And looking back, I wouldn't change it at all, although heading off to boarding school was an interesting experience. So growing up in that way has meant that it's not particularly the way that I want my girls to grow up, although we do absolutely love going back and visiting mum and dad. And I love having the kids work in the yards. I love them to experience that. But I love living in our regional town. I love the fact that I can look out the window and still see so much agriculture, but I also enjoy 10 minutes down the road is a supermarket, the girls' primary school, and it's just, I'm very self-reliant and I'm very organised in the fact that I don't need to go to the shops all the time. It always amazes me when new people come to town and they really struggle with the lack of shops. So they do weekly trips either to Townsville or to Cannonvale, which is 60 kilometres away. And they say, well, how do you get everything you need? And I just think to myself, but if Bowen doesn't have it, do I really need it? So that's growing up in a remote area has really shaped me in that way. You know, the fact that I live in a regional town and I do have access to a supermarket and a primary school, I don't actually consider myself a rural woman anymore, but I do go out and visit my mother as much as I can, and she's between Winton and Hewenden on a cattle station, and the challenges that she faces in the way of how much more expensive their groceries are, the sheer distance that you have to go to get the groceries or to see a doctor. One of the girls got sick when we were out there, and the fear that hops up into your throat when you are so far away from a hospital, when your child is ill, is I just don't know how mum did it growing up. I really feel like to be a woman on the land and to be so isolated takes a really, really special type of woman. You've got to have amazing fortitude. And I see it in my grandmother and I see it in my mother. And I know I could rise to the challenge if I needed to. But happily, I feel quite content in my regional town. But there are so many challenges that I do see with my friends who are still on the land and in such isolated areas. And, you know, the sheer distance of having to travel to get any kind of assistance is the greatest challenge. Another business that I so admire is the one run by Rebecca Bradshaw, and that is Rural Child Health. Rebecca is a child health nurse who is just so passionate and so genuine in her desire to help rural and regional families get the best health care that they can from the comfort of their own living room. We all know having children is tough. But having children in an isolated area where the distances are so much, being able to access really good healthcare in the comfort of your own home without having to travel potentially thousands of kilometres, I just think it is so valuable. So if you haven't checked out Rebecca from Rural Child Health, definitely make that journey over on Instagram. I think we're making leaps and bounds in bridging the isolation for rural and regional women every single day. We have some absolute amazing women who are providing wonderful services, and I hope it continues. I hope we continue to feel less isolated. And I think that social media has really helped, that things like Zoom sessions and events, they're just amazing for letting us feel part of a community without actually having to be there in person. And a day like International Rural Women's Day actually gives us the excuse to travel the distance if we can. And those in-person community events are just so special, and I can't wait to be able to attend more.
I'm Natalie, author, facilitator, speaker and trainer, and I've written a book called Win the Grant with the Grant Writing System that packages my learnings and experience, and more importantly, a system that helps you navigate the world of grant writing. So I'm your guide that's going to help you understand grants, and more importantly, understand what makes a winning submission. I live on the lands of the Dubbaga and Willay in Dubbo, New South Wales, and I'm country born and bred. Went to the city for a little while, came back to the country, married in Dubbo, and I have operated a couple of businesses, and we now have a social enterprise called iClick to Learn that helps build the capacity of not-for-profit social enterprises and charities. And we do focus on building the capacity for regional, rural and remote Australia. I love living in regional Australia. The thing that I think is that it has actually given me a lot of room for growth personally. When I first started in business nearly 18 years ago, we didn't have people with specialised skills necessarily. And so when I would work with a client, they would need this and they would need that. And so we couldn't get it. So I learned how to do it. And I think that skill set has really set me up for the future. And I had noticed that, particularly when I was employing people, and there were a couple of people that had come from Metro and a couple of people I was looking at that were regional based. And I actually noticed that disparity in adaptability. Maybe that's not the situation now, but in the city, you're more able to actually focus on a particular role and become, quite expert in that role. And what I found is that regional lens actually gave you the ability to be a little bit of a generalist and if needed, yes, you can hire the specialist. But so many people that I've worked with over the years and continue to work with across the community sector and businesses that are looking for grants, it's not just about the writing, it's about their business plan, it's about understanding what their project plan needs to look at, looking at their financials. And that does require a diverse skill set. So this was really something that certainly set up my skill set for business, and I really do believe has enabled me to succeed. I think the two biggest challenges has been the ability to network, particularly with larger organisations that are more metro-based. Pre-COVID obviously was very different to post-COVID, but even still post-COVID, there are plenty that are saying, no, we want to get back to face-to-face. And there are so many events and so many opportunities that you just miss out because it costs far too much to just jump on a flight for a, 1 or 2 hour networking session. So you have to very, very much pick and choose the networks. And as much as, yeah, sure, you can reach out, I think, we all can't undervalue the ability to go into a room of our potential prospects and to meet quite a few different people and have quite a few different conversations in a matter of an hour versus having to, individually contact them. And even to the point that you even know that they're there. The other thing that has over the years, and this has shifted quite a lot, but certainly the patriarchal approach, when we talk about larger businesses and we talk about government. So, being able to kind of shift into that older, more traditional method of contacts and networking, the private school system, the male executive system. So, that as I said, has shifted a lot, thank goodness. But early years in business, that was also quite a difficult one to navigate. Look, it still obviously exists, but, we're women. We've created our own networks and our own systems. And it's that whole thing of when we have a challenge, for us, it's right, how do we get creative and how do we get around it? And I think one of the benefits is that as a result, we've got really far-reaching networks within regional Australia as well. There are so many people in regional Australia that I'm inspired by, and these are the doers. These are the volunteers in our community, mostly female, I have to say. Most of us are in terms of social justice. We want something improved. We want our childcare facilities improved. The healthcare is not sufficient. Whatever it might be, it's generally a social challenge that makes us stand up and get in, fundraise, advocate to the minister, whatever it might be, to get that thing in our community. So what really inspires me are those people that aren't there for the accolades. They just get in and they know there's a problem. They want that fixed because they know the impact it has on either themselves and their family or their friends, the community at large. And they say, this is just not good enough. We need change. And so a big shout out and a big congratulations and thank you to those women in community that are making a significant difference. Well done, and keep going. It is so worth it. Without the work that you've done, our communities wouldn't be as happy, healthy, or as strong. So thanks for the work that you do. Days like International Rural Women's Day are actually really important to highlight the challenges that we still come up against. We've still got wage disparity. We still struggle against some of the patriarchal network systems. There's still quite a lot that we as women face in terms of barriers. Obviously, we're smart cookies. We find ways around them, up, over, or around them, or under them. But at the end of the day, there are still some challenges that we have. So days like International Rural Women's Day, I think it's a really good reminder and a healthy reminder to women that you don't have to do it alone. There are other people out there, other business women out there that are going through the same things that you're going through. Don't think that you can't reach out to somebody and share your challenges, and even from a competitive perspective, you would be amazed if you had a conversation with a competitor, a real, honest, authentic conversation, how in actual fact you could both end up in working in partnership on a project or being great advocates and referral points. So International Rural Women's Day is there to celebrate all of the great opportunities that we have that we can leverage, but also really think about how we can further progress and advance our communities in the future.
I'm Minnie Tracy, and I am from a tiny little town called Kahuna in northern Victoria with a population of about 2,000 people. I love living in Kahuna. I haven't always been here. I did grow up here and did my schooling, and my husband and I moved away to go to university. But when it came time to raise our family, we decided to move home to Kahuna for family support, for the community vibe, and because we really just had a fantastic time growing up in Kahuna and wanted that for our family and our children. So we call ourselves returners, people that have gone away, experienced other things in life, and have decided to move back to the country. I guess that shows how passionate we are about that. A bit about me, I have a few different qualifications in some random areas. I have a Bachelor of IT, I am a teacher, and I also have degrees and qualifications in business and finance. So that's sort of all come together after having a few different jobs in small business and some dabbling in my own businesses. I have now created two of my own businesses in Kahuna. One of them is called Kahuna Co, which is a co-working space and flexible hire hub. And we created that prior to COVID, before everyone knew about working from home and flexible learning and working. And people thought we were crazy, but it's kind of worked out well now because it's more mainstream. But we hire it out, and also it enables other businesses to use our facilities for outreach services or on a flexible basis. So it's actually really benefited our community for services coming to our town that might not be able to maintain full-time business here, but they're happy to come on a flexible basis, maybe once a week, once a fortnight. My reputation with this, everyone started coming to me for business advice, and obviously I was talking to a lot of small business owners, and I already had been doing that in my role as an insurance broker previously for 10 years. And I then decided to start up a business mentoring service, which is called Bush Biz Boost. And that's pretty much my full-time job now. I am a rural small business mentor, and I help people predominantly in the digital space, digital marketing and capabilities. And I just absolutely love learning about small businesses, especially bush businesses, and helping them, supporting them, and watching them grow. Living in a rural and regional area has definitely shaped my identity. Obviously, being raised in a small area and then returning to it has been a choice. And I have grown up with a family that is very strong on community and community service. That has come from my grandparents, through to my parents, my husband, and now through to my children. And that is one of our family values and my personal values. So we love the fact that we are born and bred in the country, but also the fact we've gone away and experienced other things. We do like the pace of life in the city sometimes, just for the occasional visit, but it's always nice to come home to the fresh air and space. And we've been raised and raising our children to be really proud to be people that live in the country, to not see it as a disadvantage. And then if people are finding it a disadvantage, to work out how to help them with those challenges and to support them in those challenges, and to make country life as easy and simple as possible and as attractive as possible to as many people as we can. We just really love it. One of the biggest challenges that I have faced as a rural woman, especially in the leadership space and the small business space, is probably tall poppy syndrome and a real small town mentality. Especially being a woman. So sometimes in small communities, everyone thinks they know you, they grew up with you, and that you should know your place in the pecking order of the town's ecosystem. And then if you've got new ideas, if you've got opinions on things, and you're trying to invoke change and bring that innovation to town, it's often met by resistance. As people naturally don't like change, even if it's going to be like good for the town and good for the majority of people. So if you, in a small town, if you challenge someone who perceives themselves as being powerful, it can cause a bit of backlash. That's difficult to deal with, especially if you aren't used to that and you're a very good-hearted person just trying to do the right thing and be of service to your community. So yeah, rocking the status quo can be tricky. This is very frustrating because someone who likes to be a change maker, to identify problems and create solutions and work on projects and help people, lead people through challenges and creating solutions, that can be really, really frustrating with the lack of progress in a lot of towns and the lack of innovation sometimes. People are often just stuck doing things that the way they've always done them, which seems logical sometimes, but it's not always the best option. And the sort of sometimes in a small town, there's social politics behind the scenes, often to the detriment of the progress of the community, which is not really good. And it can be hard if you have someone who, or a group of people that are behaving inappropriately, then it can be hard to be the one to stick your neck out and call that out. Can have a bit of backlash, but I have really strong integrity and I can't turn a blind eye when something's wrong. So I try and work with people to create solutions to any problems that are happening. So to overcome this, we have to show up, no matter how hard it is. We have to lead by example. And I always think of my daughter and other young rural women who are looking up to you for encouragement, motivation, strength, advice, all that stuff. So calling out bad behaviour is good, is the thing to do, and also embracing change, encouraging people to embrace change and be inclusive is really important as well. I would love to give a shout out to my wonderful friend Sarah Mostyn of Windella Farm, who is also a progressive and innovative rural woman, and she is kicking goals in her business. So someone who grew up on the Gold Coast and then decided they wanted to live in a rural area, they've chosen possibly one of the most regional places to set up, and then to start a goat farm so that she could milk the goats and use them for her amazing all-natural soaps and other body products made from the goat's milk. So for some, this would have been a challenge. You have to have a fair amount of grit. You have to learn a lot. But she's really embraced rural life. She's created not one, but two amazing product-based businesses and is heavily involved in our community, running our monthly farmers market, which really helps support even more small local businesses. So shout out to Sarah. She's doing a wonderful job. My hopes and dreams for the future of rural women in our community is that it won't be obvious who is a rural woman and who isn't, and it won't even be an issue. There won't be much difference and there won't be disadvantages, because essentially we all have the most amazing skills, we have the most experience and knowledge, and recognising that there are so many amazing humans out in the bush that have just as many capabilities as their metro dwelling people. International Rural Women's Day is really important because it does highlight this for one day of the year, but I like to think, let's keep it in front of our mind how important us rural ladies are. We're often the backbone of not only our family, maybe our farm, maybe our other businesses, maybe our workplace, maybe our community organisations, our kids' schools. And we are turning up and doing that every day, not just on International Rural Women's Day, but it is nice to recognise this and get a little bit of a pat on the back every now and again, even if it is once a year.
Hi, I am a business owner of the Efficiency Coach and the Grants Club. I live in Roma in Queensland, but I've also spent the majority of my life living in rural and regional areas in New Zealand and Australia. And I love helping small businesses to grow through strategy, understanding their numbers, and utilising grants to grow and thrive. I'm a chartered accountant. I've spent 15 years in corporate, mainly in the energy sector and government across New Zealand, London, and in Gippsland. And I just love living in the country, close to nature, slower pace of life, but also having the proximity to the cities and really having the best of both worlds. I've always lived in regional and rural areas for most of my life, apart from a stint in London. And how this has shaped my life has just been that we've had the best of both worlds, and that I can understand and appreciate how rural and regional life operates and the challenges that we're faced that city folk just don't have to endure. So when it comes to mentoring and working with businesses and talking to people, it's having that deeper understanding, knowing where they're coming from, the unique challenges that we have, being with less people, less access, being further away from services, and taking those challenges and providing solutions and coming up with ways that we can operate and thrive wherever we choose to live. In terms of challenges, I think challenges are there to be solved, and with the advancement of digital access and being able to be on Zoom has overcome some of these challenges that we faced in the past. Travel costs, being further away, not being able to have that face-to-face contact in the larger centres has been some of the challenges, but I think utilising the digital space, still creating those connections, still operating in a way that you can serve your clients, your friends, connect with others, and create that network of other people in the same situation so that you can really thrive together, overcome those challenges together. But I think the distance is the biggest thing, but also making sure that you can plan out your week. When are you going to go to the city or town? Be really organised and make sure that it's an efficient way so that you're not losing time. Now when I drive anywhere, I listen to podcasts, might make sure I do some phone calls, and that's a way to utilise that time that we're taking extra to be part of and be able to participate in events and other things, but also recognising that being online, you're still there. You're still in the room, you're still contributing, and you're still getting the value of it as well. So those challenges are there, but I think the benefits of living in the country absolutely outweigh those challenges. And we just need to be really strategic about where we put our energy, what we put our effort into, picking really what we want to focus on and where we want to spend our time. And that's probably a better outcome than being able to go to everything, spreading yourself too thin, and then not being focused on what we really want to achieve. Having recently relocated to Roma in Queensland from Gippsland in Victoria, I have met some wonderful rural women who are doing great things in business, and one of them is Rebecca Bradshaw from Jackson, who is Rural Child Health, and Rebecca is doing amazing things, and we were in a networking online group, and then we met face to face because she was the keynote speaker at one of the business events in Roma, and she's just a wealth of knowledge and loves sharing and helping mothers and families to have access to that health information so that your children can thrive. So a great example of using technology, her skills and expertise to reach a wider audience across Australia, and she lives just 50 minutes down the road from me. So looking forward to more face-to-face catch-ups with Rebecca. My hopes and dreams for the future of rural women and in any community is to have those opportunities to be able to work, to be able to have a business, to be able to contribute to the community and not feel like they're isolated because they are physically away from everyone else, and using the digital space that is available to us, and that we can still be successful, we can still contribute, we can still have careers, we can still be professionals, and we can still look after our families. And just because you live rural or regional doesn't mean that you're any less important than in the cities. And really showcase and promote and celebrate rural women. As I say, I've lived in New Zealand and Australia, and you know, there are so many amazing rural women out there that are doing amazing things, and we need to know about them, and we need to not make location a factor in that success. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, whether you're in the bush, regional, remote, we can all strive. And I think International Rural Women's Day really needs to showcase that we're all busy, we're all trying to do our best, and we need to celebrate each other, support each other, and keep doing the amazing things that we're doing.
Hi, I'm Shaw, and I'm co-owner of Tambo Teddies, and I live in Tambo in Western Queensland, which is about 900 kilometres west of Brisbane. love living out here. I'm originally from New Zealand, and I came out here as a Jillaroo. Then I became a wall classer. Then I worked for council as an arts and cultural officer. And with two friends, we purchased Tambo Teddies in 2014. One of the friends left the business a couple of years later, and myself and Tammy Johnson have gone on to run it since then. We're based here in Tambo, both of us, but we have actually expanded the business to Toowoomba as well. That happened in 2019 because we just couldn't find enough people in Tambo to sew enough teddy bears. And without teddy bears on the shelf, you don't have a teddy bear business. We love living in the outback. It's a great place to bring up children. There's a lot of freedom. Might get a bit hot at times, but at other times the weather's just beautiful. And you live a really busy life in a little outback town. It's quite amazing how there is always something happening. And of course, being Tambo itself is a very small town. There's only about 380, 400 people in the community, and it's part of the Blackall Tambo region. There's only just under around 2,000 people. So a small population in a vast area. And what happens with little towns like ours is there's always lots happening. There's lots of committees, lots of organisations. So you end up wearing a lot of hats. And, Tammy and I are both involved in the stock show. I'm involved in the Arts Council and the Art Gallery. Tammy's involved as secretary of the race club. Of course, she's got little children now, so she's running around doing things with them. She also plays polo cross. We go to exercise classes. We're lucky to have a personal trainer in the district. So that's sort of a little bit of a snapshot where there's always something happening. So I definitely feel living in the outback is a part of our identity. It's something we're all proud of out here, is that we do live in what people consider the harsh outback. I mean, we consider it the beautiful outback. And so definitely it's part of our identity. As a rural woman living in remote Western Queensland, the biggest challenge is that distance that we are used to. If you're ever going anywhere, if I'm going home to New Zealand, there's always an extra day's travel either side involved. So those sorts of things, that I feel is our biggest challenge. With the internet and everything, getting whatever you want is easy now. So we can, shopping. Do we need to do it? Yes, of course we do. But we can do online shopping these days, and there's a few disasters sometimes, and you have to send things back. So I don't think shopping's a big challenge anymore, but it used to be. But it's just that distance. Sometimes there's things you'd love to go to, like if you're going to a party in Brisbane, you've got to travel down on the Friday. If to make the most of it and to catch up with people, you tend to drive home on the Sunday. So you're taking 4 days to go to a party. Yeah, it's fun though. Friends, living in a rural, remote community, your friends are across all sorts of different age groups. And I remember when I was younger and having my children, my older friends were just such a support network. And also sort of supported us. They've held the roles of president of the show or president of the Arts Council. So you had great people who'd already held those roles as mentors to support you. And then, as I said, as a young mum, you had those great friends who were there to support you in that new journey, because often family lives a long way away. So there's lots of great women in the rural communities. Most women are energetic, inventive, and just get things done out here. So I feel there's so many other women in my community that I look up to and who have been my inspiration. Rural Women's Day is important, recognising, because often I feel the women in these communities really hold them up. They're the backbone of the communities, and I think International Rural Women's Day really shines a light on them and shines a light on a lot of achievements. So for the future, I would just hope that our community continues to thrive. And I do believe it will, because I do believe there are so many women in this community who will keep it going. And it's not only keeping it going, keeping what we do going, we're always coming up with new things, new ideas for our community, for people who live here, be they the children, the older people. Women in this community really support our whole community and each other.
I really hope you enjoyed those interviews as much as I did pulling them together. There were some amazing stories in there, and I really loved hearing about, how being a rural woman has shaped them and how they have overcome their diversities or adversities, and of course, what this day means to them. I would really love you to share this podcast with other business owners, with other rural women, or just other people who would love to hear these stories as well. It's really important to celebrate a day like today. Certainly, being a rural woman myself, I'm really excited to share this podcast with you that I've pulled together. So happy International Rural Women's Day. Take care and enjoy your week. And I will see you back here on Thursday for a normal Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thanks for listening.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.